most in the history of Halloween Horror Nights.
Do you think?
Yeah, it's we've done a lot of these now. So I thought it would be cool just to start at the beginning, if you wouldn't mind. In 2014, do you remember, I'll even back up from there, do you remember the first time you came to Horror Nights?
I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the Black Sabbath maze was the
Yeah.
And I think that's the first time you and I met. And
It was,
I
yeah.
was so blown away by this maze, and had the best time. And I was very vocal about it. You know, probably more animated than you'd usually see me. Anyway, and so I was hooked on Halloween Horror Nights from that moment on.
And I remember that night when we came out of that maze, you said, I'd like to do this. How can we do something together? And so I was like, okay, let me think about that. And then a year later, I sent you the treatment for Clowns 3D.
Which was super exciting, because I offered to get involved, but I mean, like, what capacity, I didn't know. And he called me up and he goes, yeah, I got this original maze that we're doing, and would you be interested in doing the music? It's this psycho clown thing. And I wrote something in my mind that second.
You wrote it like right away, didn't you?
Yeah, literally when you told me that, I had a melody in my head, and that's basically what this is based on.
Cool. Well, I brought a lot of goodies today. We have a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to play a little sample from this. I think I brought the track of the whole maze, so forgive me, I might have to cut it off a little bit early, but we're going to go back down memory lane and revisit some of the things Slash has done with us in the past, and we're going to share some of the things Slash is doing with us in the future. So here's a little bit of Clowns 3D. All right, give it up for Clowns 3D. All right. Then a little bit of time went past, about 4 years, and we found out that we were going to be bringing the Universal Monsters to Halloween Horror Nights. And you're the first person I called right after that. Do you remember? What was your reaction when I made that call?
Well, it was out of the blue, so I was like, really, really surprised. And you told me what the concept was, and it was just super exciting because, I'm an old school fan of the Universal Monsters. And to get the phone call, hey, do you want to try, because he was really, really polite about it, like seeing if maybe I was busy or whatever it was. And he goes, would you be
Well, you're in a pretty big band,
But I mean, all things considered, I would find time, And so he told me what the concept was, and I was just super ecstatic to get involved with it. And it was a lot of fun to do, and the artwork was amazing. It was very inspiring, so it was easy to come up with a melody that I thought would work for it.
Of all the Universal Monsters, do you have a favorite?
I'd have to say I'm pretty partial to Frankenstein. Just the tragic, so it would be Frankenstein, then Dracula, then the werewolf, and then the mummy.
The mummy, he always. We're going to talk about the mummy. Don't worry, the mummy is getting his due. Speaking of Frankenstein, here's a little sample from Universal Monsters 2018. We Belong Dead. Cool, give it up for Universal Monsters! And then a change of pace. Then next year, 2019, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. And this is a different kind of piece of music that you created for us. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, because there was a real story going on here, and it sort of evoked, I thought, something that was a little bit more classical and moody, you know.
And also, like the setting, the beginning of the house was the gypsy camp.
Right.
So it kind of suggested.
There was different feels for the different aspects of the story because you were going through. You had the gypsy camp, you had the lab, you had all these different elements going on. So they all had different moods.
So this is a little snippet from Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, the Gypsy Camp. Cool, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. And then after, I take it you guys like The Bride of Frankenstein Lives, huh? Now, what do you remember about this particular one?
Well, I mean, it was cool because it was all female themed, right? I was sort of partial to that idea, you know. And then, I mean, you have this great story of the Bride of Frankenstein trying to revive her mate and having to deal with getting the vampire, what do you call the vampire brides?
Yeah,
to work with her, and in order to work with her, she had to kick the shit out of him. So it was just a really, really interesting concept, and it was just fun to make up something for it.
So, and I know you guys all the time, you guys are like, asking about the music from The Bride. So this is a little snippet from The Bride of Frankenstein Lives. Awesome. Bride of Frankenstein lives. I had to let that one play. I'll go on record. So far, that's my favorite of all the scores you've done for us over the years. But the Universal Monsters legacy at HHN is not over. As you well know, we announced earlier this year a new house called Universal Monsters Legends Collide. Just real quick, tell you a little bit about the concept of this house. It starts with this. Believe it or not, now Universal made a ton of Universal Monsters movies. Do you remember all those ones like towards the, kind of when they got into the 40s and they just started throwing the kitchen sink at it? Like House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula. It was like, you know, okay, we'll have the Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula, you know, they just like pile them on. Believe it or not, they never did a movie in the original Universal classic monster horror cycle that had Dracula, the Mummy, and the Wolfman. Never happened. So, now it is. So what we did is we partnered with our sister park, Universal Orlando Resort. Our creative teams joined forces to create this overall concept, and we actually did it as kind of a two-parter. So in Orlando, that's like part one of the story. That's going to Egypt for the expedition. And then part two is in Hollywood, which is where it picks up when it comes back to London. So speaking of London, this particular house for Hollywood is set in the Limehouse district. Now,